Hello, and welcome to our discussion of the Pods V1 AMM. Today we'll be covering four main topics. The first one is liquidity providers on our Options AMM platform. The second one is the metric that we call FIMP, or also known as the pool value factor. What it does is it allows you to track things like impermanent gain and impermanent loss of an LP position. We can look into what can happen to an LP position, and we will go over a sandbox model which you can play around with. So first of all, I would like to mention that an LP liquidity provider provides a combination of options tokens and stablecoins into a particular option series. For example, you have a call option for Ethereum with a strike price of 3,000. You can provide, let's say, X amount of options and Y amount of stablecoins. In general, what is important to note is that there are two dynamic processes that are taking place and are impacting an LP's outcome in terms of an impermanent gain or impermanent loss. So two independent processes may be moving. The first one that may be moving and impacting is the option price itself, which can shift due to changes in the underlying price. So in this case, for our example, for Ethereum, if Ethereum goes to a different price, it impacts the option price, which impacts the value of the option pool. The second thing that can change is the buying and selling of options inside the AMM itself. So, for example, you may start off with a pool consisting of, let's say, 100 options and 50,000 stablecoins. What may take shape is more buying may occur, which will drain, for example, the option tokens pool, but also increase the stablecoins pool. So be aware that there are these two dynamics that are taking place at the same time. So let's look at a condition of we, let's say, ignore for a second market fluctuations and just focus on what's going on with an LP's position in the Pods AMM. So just looking at what can possibly happen. And in general, what can possibly happen is primarily only two directions that can take place over the life of the AMM option series. They are either more people are buying the option or more people are selling the option. So for example, in the first category, we may have a situation where more people are buying the option. Every time they buy an option, that can impact the price of the option, not just the impact of the price of the option that may happen out there externally, but also this buying can also impact the price. In this case, it can push, for example, the option price up because there's more demand for it because the pool is being drained of this option. And at the same time, an inverse scenario may happen is where more people are selling. So now there are more people selling options into the pool. And as they are selling an option into the pool, they are withdrawing stablecoins. So these two dynamics may take shape. And we look separately at the impermanent gain or loss relative to total fees earned because of clarity for the LP, that these two different processes are also going on. So what we use to track these changes for an LP is this thing known as the pool value factor. It helps keep track of internal AMM changes in the pools. It basically tells you the impermanent gain loss at the present moment. And unlike a Uniswap V3 concept, or a V2 concept where you are given LP tokens, in our AMM, due to the fact that the option price changes, we use this FIMP to keep track of these shifts. So as an example, let's do a more concrete formula. So how does it work? So each LP has an FIMP to keep track of the original position. In this case, the original positions are DBA and DBB. You can think of them as the debt balance A, which is the debt balance of options, and the debt balance B, the debt balance of stablecoins. So in our previous example, let's say 100 Ethereum options and 50,000 stablecoins. And the future position, which may change as time goes on, which is total balances of A and total balances of B. So how does the formula for the FIMP look like for an LP? Well, if nothing changes, originally your FIMP is always 1. But as time goes on, your FIMP may change. So the total balance may either go up or down, and the price may change. The price may go up or the price may go down. And the total balance may also change. So let's do a simple example with Alice. Suppose there's a liquidity provider, Alice, and Alice has liquidity. Then Bob engages in a trade, and then Alice, let's say, calculates her liquidity position. So at first, let's say Alice provides 250 Matic options of the Matic token layer 2 on Polygon. And for the sake of simplicity, let's say the price of this option is $1. And if you want to get into more of the detail of how options are priced and stuff like that, there's another video, a part 1, which actually goes into great detail as to how we price these options. Basically, long story short, we allow implied volatility to be the entity that is being traded all the time. So we make implied volatility variable. So going with our example, an LP Alice provides 250 Matic options. Let's say they all cost $1, and 250 USDC in stablecoins. So that means our debt balance A and debt balance B are equal to 250. Price is 1. And the FM at this moment is also 1. Buyer Bob enters and buys 50 Matic options, with the price in this case increasing to 1.1. I will not get into detail as to how this 1.1 takes place here, but be aware that if you want more detail as to how the price changes, remember there are two things that impact it. The first one is the changes in the underlying price in the market. But at the same time, there's also dynamics, which is just in these pools that change it. So two independent processes. And if you want to know more about the first independent process, which helps price the option, there's a discussion of the part 1 video that I'm referring to. And let's, for the sake of simplicity, just say it goes to 1.1. So what happens? 200 options are now available, and 300 stablecoins are now available, and the price changed to 1.1. So now let's say LP Alice wants to know what is her impairment gain or impairment loss at this present moment. So remember, LP Alice now has 200 Matic options costing 1.1 each and 300 USDC stablecoins due to the trade that Bob made. As a result, we have the following calculation of the FM formula, and that results with an FM of about 1.04 and a permanent gain at the present moment, all things being equal, of 4%. An important part to note about the AMM is that the things that it's kind of only when you interact with the AMM do things update. Meaning, suppose nobody interacts with the AMM and the price in the market for, let's say, the Matic option, let's say the Matic price keeps rising, but nobody's trading the pool. Well, that means the option price has not been updated. So the longer of a time interval that goes on without trading, the more there's chance of some kind of arbitrage taking place if people do not notice this price shift. So there is a kind of an encouragement to update the price, similar to the concept of Uniswap, where let's say you have an ETH USDC pair on Uniswap, and let's say Coinbase has a price that varies. The more the price varies, and the more time goes on, the higher the likelihood that somebody is going to update and see this arbitrage changing between Uniswap and Coinbase and update the price on Uniswap. In a similar manner, the same concept applies to implied volatility here. So let's do a scenario of a little toy model of our AMM, and we're going to go over a simplified model of options, of a particular option pool being created on our AMM, consisting of 500 options, Matic options, costing each $1, and 500 stablecoins being added to it. So let's take a look at how it looks like. So as you can see, we have on the X and Y 2 axes. X is the option tokens pool, Y is the stablecoins pool. Let's go over the variables. We have for P the price. The price of the option when somebody either adds liquidity, removes liquidity, buys or sells, updates this price. For example, at any given moment, somebody either buys or sells or adds liquidity or removes liquidity, the price may change. So the price in the background could always be moving unless somebody is always, so to speak, moving, but as soon as an interaction with the AMM takes place, the price is updated. So let's just get an idea of how the picture looks like. So if the price of the option decreases or the price of the option increases, what can happen? So that's the first variable I want to explain. The dynamic of the price, of the Black-Scholes price, that can be impacted due to, remember, the movements in the underlying and the dynamics in the AMM due to shifts in the total balances of the option tokens and the stablecoin tokens. And I'm referring to these guys. So, for example, initially somebody provided 500 liquidity, correct? And the blue line determines by how much of a price impact you can have. So either in the buying or selling direction. And as more people add tokens to the pools, what happens is that this blue line starts to flatten more and more. What this means is that for every additional unit of buying, the price does not have that much of an impact. But as there's less and less liquidity, let's say we move liquidity to 100. There's 100 options in 100 stablecoin tokens. As you start to buy more and more units, let's say you buy 30 out of 100, each additional increase results in more and more of a price impact. So what are the minimums right here, the x's and the y's? Well, think of these as this little green box. And the purpose of it is, to be exact, it's linear optimization. For those of you who are familiar with linear programming, it is a particular constraint that ensures that an LP can be made whole with respect to his original price, the original liquidity position. So for example, observe that there are minimums which contain P inside the price. As we change the price of the option, which can change either up or down, we want to make sure that the LP always has a particular condition met, which is he's able to withdraw a certain amount from the pool. And in particular, that amount is constrained by the minimums. So whether the option vastly decreases in price or vastly increases in price, we want to make sure that, okay, if it vastly increases in price, you can still have maybe $100 and some of your option tokens, which could be worth less. Or you might be in a position where you might have a different situation where you have the inverse. So how do we track liquidity? We use these constraints on the y and the x, and we calculate the k basically. So it's very similar to the Uniswap model. And as the amount of liquidity increases, amount of option coin and stablecoin pools, option tokens increases, liquidity also increases. The other important thing to note is the mechanism in which the AMM updates due to just the buying and the selling. This is this formula right here, T, and it is the black line. So as more people buy more and more, let's say they buy 375 options, you can see that for each purchase, there is a higher and higher impact. Another thing worth mentioning here is the impact of dynamic fees. So what we have is we have these certain dynamic fees. The purpose of them is to ensure smooth trading so that people don't massively either try to manipulate implied volatility or figure out some way of manipulating prices, which could be done through implied volatility, but this highly discourages it because what it does is it adds a fee, a dynamic one, relative to the amount of the pool that is being bought. So in this case, somebody's trying to buy a tremendously large chunk, over 37.5% of the pool, let's say, and that will have a severe punishment fee of over 105%. So if the person just buys a very small amount, say, I don't know, 40 tokens, then there's practically no fee impact. But if the person purposefully, let's say, tries buying and selling a large amount, what that is going to do is it's going to increase the price of the option by over 109% in this case. If that happens, all of the 109, and we have observed in experiments that there may have been people who either purposefully tried to buy large amounts to try and manipulate the implied volatility, or maybe people just unknowingly bought it. And what happens is all of that 109% that is gained goes directly to the LPs. So we make it disadvantageous for people to try and manipulate this aspect. And this effort here is included in the calculation here. So let's go to an original example here that we had with Matic options. I believe it was, let's see, 250 and 250. So a person comes in and buys 50 options. Here's how the dynamic shifts. The person buys 50 options. The price goes, let's say, to 200. But remember, he bought them. As he bought them, the price gets pushed up, right? It gets pushed up. So it gets moved up. And at that point, and I have to manually adjust this here, right here, because what's going on is the option pricing smart contracts update themselves. And let's see, for the sake of simplicity, the price goes 1.1. So the price goes to 1.1. And it increases the stablecoin pool. And that is our new point on the curve here. From this point on, let's say we repeat the phenomenon again. Let's say you try buying, okay, another 100, let's say another 50 are bought. That in turn increases it by 300. Let's say it increases it by even more, so it pushes the price up even higher, right? And you can see this phenomenon as you're trying to drain the pool and you're paying more and more in options, you wind up pushing the price more and more. So that is the dynamic going one way in buying. You can go the other way in selling. So you're selling and you're pushing the price down. So that's what's happening. So this is kind of the basic dynamic, and I will make this link available right here for you to play around with this model and see what happens, all the kinds of different scenarios that you're welcome to play around with. So that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask on the Discord. Thank you for your time.